Welcome to the STARS program, seniors taking active roles in society. And now, here's your host, ANITA FINLEY.
Good morning, Darwin.
Good morning to you. It seems like an eternity since I talked to you. What a difference a day makes.
Oh, you are so right. I'm so glad to speak to you. Tell me, first of all, how's the weather in New York?
It is cold and dark, and in 2 hours, the streets of Manhattan will be crowded with so much traffic, no one can move.
Well, just have to come down here to sunny Florida. I'm sorry, Darwin.
Sunny Florida, a memory of my youth.
I know that. Well, I was really interested in your article in Boomer Times because I didn't know that these femme fatales did what they did. I never heard their names before, but apparently they had quite an impression on our servicemen.
The voices of World War II, and as I wrote in the article, the German, Lily Marlene, lived with me. I don't mean that provocatively.
I understand.
She had her boyfriend with her who was 28, named Wolfgang, and she broadcast behind enemy lines. So I'm glad that you're running the article because these women did a great deal. You know, World War II was about propaganda. Well, they didn't want Goebbels to be the only one issuing propaganda, so they were propagandists for the American side. And bless them all, and they're all gone now, and we'll miss them. Now, ANITA, I want to tell you what's going on.
Oh, my goodness. I'm waiting with bated breath.
As you know, I wrote this big book on Trump. I've never received such discouragement in the every book I've done has been, but there were roadblocks to this book. It was called Donald Trump, the Man Who Would Be King. What a great title.
Oh, boy, wasn't that right on?
And let me give you an example. My Chinese publisher said, you know, after November 8th, no one will be wanting a book on Donald Trump. He said the Chinese equivalent of, he will be dead meat. There will be no one in the world interested in Donald Trump. He said, however, we're planning to rush in to print more copies of your Hillary book. And then he said, now the strange thing is happening. We're getting ready to issue your book on Jackie Kennedy, and most of the orders are coming in for Jackie Kennedy. He said, for some reason, the Chinese people want to know about Jackie.
Well, she's always been famous, and we all loved her, and this is a very different world now.
The Chinese do, too. But then he said, now I've got news. The Chinese censors have approved your book, and it is now at the top of the list to be issued in China. Several have been rejected because they dealt on printing all of the Chinese propaganda, that anti-propaganda that Trump, you know, he's been attacking China. And even though he buys their steel for his hotel. And
you know what happened yesterday with Taiwan. He went out on the limb.
Yes.
I mean, this is insanity.
Yes, but the interesting thing is he said, well, you know, unlike books devoted just to politics, your book went into the past of what kind of man he was, where he came from, what his father was like, how the grandfather founded the dynasty, and you went into his wives and also included their boyfriends, and you talk about his lusting for Princess Di after her divorce from Charles. He said, you know, our audience will eat those things up because we've heard all the propaganda stuff on the campaign. So he said they want all those personal details. So anyway, it's a new day for my book.
So you're saying, wait a minute. So what you're saying is they're now going to really publish it big time.
Well, yeah, it's out there, but instead of dead meat, like book distributors said, this book is going to be dead. It'll just sit on the shelves.
Huh.
It's not true. You know, it's not very favorable to Trump because you write his story, but the story is often shocking. Yet, the strangest thing happened. You know, I'm associated with New York and with Hollywood, but actually, I have deep roots in America. I grew up in Appalachia in North Carolina. I went to work professionally in Florida. I've had a home in Georgia, in fact, in the place where the Civil War came to an end. And I've lived in Columbia, South Carolina, and Richmond, Virginia. So I'm not unfamiliar with the South. And I had and I knew about poverty and all those things. Of course, my boss in New York had a home in Litchfield, Connecticut, and he never used it very much. So I had the use of that for 25 years. Oh, by the way, when I moved in, guess who my next-door neighbors were? It was the playwright Arthur Miller, and he was married to a blonde star named Marilyn Monroe. How's that for neighbors?
I would say you always do get the best.
Yeah, and then I also have even rented a house for 2 years in Hollywood. It was owned by Jane Russell. Do you remember her?
Oh, I see her so clearly in my mind.
Yes, her pictures were all over the walls and even in the bathroom.
Well,
that's beside the point. It's just to show that I almost knew from the beginning that Trump would win, because I'm still very close to my hometown where my family lives. And oddly enough, the New York Times on the front page featured my hometown almost as the preview of the people who were voting for Trump.
Really?
And they nailed it. In fact, 92% of the people in the county voted for Trump. And I've talked to them, and when I was a boy there, they had 4 factories. And if you weren't drunk on moonshine, it was the moonshine capital of America. If you weren't drunk on moonshine, you could almost get a job in the factory. Actually, the women stayed at home, so we're talking mostly the men here. And now, the last time I was there, those 4 factories have shut down. Weeds are growing around, and it's sort of like a small version of Detroit. And if you want a job, your best bet now is to hamburgers at McDonald's. It's a different time, and yet I sort of got into a few arguments. These people there seem to believe that with the new administration, these factories will be factories again.
Yeah, it's too bad. That's the big problem with all this. It's like almost being in outer land. It's like the truth is not really the truth. It's what people are hearing. And yeah, I'm very sad about everything too, Darwin. I'm glad that you're talking about this, because I'm just so upset that our world is going to change. I mean, I don't mind that changes. You have one administration comes into another, but this is going to change to be pretty serious.
Yeah, I think it is. Now, I'm assuming that many of the people listening to us are no longer spring chickens. So 2 days ago, I visited my doctor's office, and he has mostly senior citizens. And he has always been very opposed to Obamacare. But he said nearly all of his patients are coming in worried that they're going to lose their coverage. And he gave me a report that may be issued in about 3 weeks that was done by a panel in New York. There is a group, in fact, there are several groups in America, that once a plan is put forward, these people analyze it. You know, you've got machines, you've got computers and everything, and they can come up with an analysis. And since that is viewed as a threat, and since so many people are worried about Medicare or Medicaid and Social Security, I just want to read you what I just picked up in the New York Times, and then I want to tell you about this report because it may affect all of us. It said it was about the white working class who voted for Trump is about to be betrayed. The evidence of that coming betrayal is obvious in the choice of an array of pro-corporate, anti-labor figures in key positions. In particular, the most important story of the week was the election of Tom Price, an ardent opponent of Obamacare and an advocate of Medicare privatization, and he would be Secretary of Health and Human Services. The trouble with that, he's also the chairman of the Budget House Committee, which is probably ultimately maybe the most important committee to be. If you're controlling the money, you're sort of important. And I met him once in Atlanta. He was a state senator back then. He gave this fiery speech. For 6 years now, Congressman Price has been the biggest attack dog on Obamacare. Now, I know from my experience with telling my doctor that most of his patients are benefiting in some way from these health services, and including some, he said, had health care for the first time. In fact, I think 20 million people have been brought in who did not have health coverage before. And so the uninsured rate dropped to 8.6%. Now, that's the lowest rate ever recorded. And you, of all people, know the Republicans have tried to get rid of Obamacare for 6 years, and they promised to replace it with something better. But what? I mean, at the moment, no one but Mr. Price, I should call him Dr. Price because he was a doctor. Well, he still is, but before coming a congressman. Now, he did draw up a plan, and it may even be enacted in just a few weeks. I mean, for the first time, Trump will be president, the House is in Republican hands, and the Senate. And the Senate, they've tried to get rid of Obamacare for, about 67 times? But Price then has... would take this mandated coverage in a different direction. And he favors a free market approach with far less consumer protection and a lot more freedom for doctors, which would allow them to not participate in the Medicare plan. If you come in with a Medicare plan, maybe he would not want to, or she, I should say, would not want to accept you. And these doctors would be immune from most malpractice lawsuits. So that would be some big changes right there. And now the liberal press, as so despised, by Trump, we in the press are all liars and monsters. He has said that Price was named not to provide health service, especially to seniors, but to demolish the nation's health care safety net. This is not just speculation. I mean, this could happen very soon, according to very many predictions. Price also supports plans to slash Medicare and Medicaid payments to tens of millions of senior citizens, disabled, and low-income Americans. And so economists have summed up his plan as cutting benefits and leaving millions of Americans with no health care at all. Now, this is causing, I'm sure it would cause concern all over Florida.
Well, it's a big concern for me. And, I don't talk politics because we have a lot of shows here that do. And I like to get into fun things and to get into people, make them smarter about their lives. But I will tell you, I do get the New York Times. I do get other magazines, newspapers. I do try to watch a lot of different TV, but I now am just about stopping to watch the television because I am getting very sad, very worried, and I always felt that this would happen, but I never said much to anyone on the air because I don't like to do that. But what you're saying, Darwin, is actually going to change everyone's lives, and the problem is the very people who voted for Trump and the kinds of life that he is going to put on other people are the ones that are going to be hurt the most.
Yes, that's the conclusion. In fact, there are articles coming out now, Seduced and Betrayed. In fact, I am really abandoning writing about politics. It was my company that lured me into it. They wanted a book on the Kennedy, which actually became the best-selling books I ever wrote.
Sure.
They wanted a book on the Reagan, young Reagan and his two wives, and then the book on Bill and Hillary, and the book on, actually they wanted a book on Trump. But I'm returning to the thing that I love best, which is writing about film history, the history of Hollywood.
And it'll keep you from going crazy.
Yeah, but I did, after reading this report, I thought, well, God, this would concern me. I don't know. It probably concerns. It would. This is something that would affect us personally, and we should be aware of what's happening. For example, Dr. Price, he wants to remove families, cut out any addiction treatment, birth control, maternity care, efforts to get prescription drugs lowered, many essential medical conditions, and also remove coverage for people who have existing medical conditions. Might find it much harder. Now, there was a woman I met from Boca Raton, a town you know so very well, and she had a very comfortable life there in Boca Raton, and she said her husband got cancer, but ultimately the medical bills ran up to $850,000. And of course she was leading a comfortable life, but she just can't go out and write a check for $850,000. And so she said it greatly affected her way. They had to sell their home, and they're living under reduced, and they even had to leave Boca Raton. And I was very touched by her story. And the Dr. Price's plan, according to this report, would affect senior citizens on Medicare, which would cost more than it costs right now to get, and people over 65 would be forced to purchase a private insurance. And the idea is to turn Medicare into a voucher program designed to limit federal spending while forcing seniors to pay more than they currently pay. And now doctors overwhelmingly, according to the American Medical Association, would favor this report. But I think it would affect some of us in the pocketbook. And so that's why I'm bringing it up today. It'll be the last time I talk about politics. From now on, I'll talk about more fun things. But I did want to share some of this with you because I know how concerned you are.
I am concerned, but and I'll just say one more thing is, and I've said this all along, if the people that make the laws, the senators and the congressmen, had to live under the same laws that we do, that they wouldn't get their health insurance and they wouldn't get a lot of the perks that they want to take away, it wouldn't happen. That's the problem.
That's right.
You see, they have no worry. They have to go to the doctor. They have everything, and it's for life. So that's the big problem. And I think Warren Buffett said it very well. He wrote about what he thought should happen. And so I am very worried. I am very upset, but I have to go on with helping the older adults and their adult children live as comfortable a life with no stress, and tell them of what's happening in the field of medicine, in the field of entertainment. And that's what I'm going to do also. I don't know what's going to happen, but I don't see a very pretty picture for our country in the next years. I really don't.
That you are to be congratulated because I read the articles you publish and what is said on the radio, and I think if I had the power, I would certainly give you an award for what you do, and I think you are such an advocate for the rights of senior citizens, and I have the greatest admiration for you now that I'm a senior citizen.
And then I for you, Darwin, but my greatest reward is having someone like you as my buddy. You've been with us for many years, and just knowing you and having you on our show and writing the articles, that's really the reward that I love.
Well, thank you very much. And as I said, I am bowing out of writing about, certainly not writing any more books on politics, because it's been a great experience for me to delve into it. Of course, I chose, I would never write a book about Michelle and Barack Obama because I hate to say this, but they don't have any scandal.
Yep, that's true.
They seem an ideal marriage, rearing two. Someone told me raising children is incorrect grammar. You only raise animals. It's rearing children.
Bill told me that a long time ago. He's very good at this, and he said, we don't raise children, we rear them. But most people don't say that, so that's okay.
My ninth grade English teacher taught me, say rearing.
Yeah, I got that.
And they reared two great daughters, and now, just in contrast, the Trump children will generate a great deal of press.
Yes.
And I don't know, the latest scandal is sort of tragic, and it's not really proven yet, but it has to do with the son Barron being maybe potentially autistic.
Yes, it's funny. I read that too, and now when I look at him, I try to figure it out. But no, it may be. But of course, that would be something that the Trump family would want to hide. But the most important thing is, besides who he is and what he does, it's going to be what is it going to affect our country that's really serious, and we'll have to see. And hopefully there'll be enough strong people around to control it. I don't know. But Darwin, we will get off of this because I do have a couple of questions for you.
Yes.
Knowing how much you love Key West, I did an article in the upcoming December issue. You're going to love this. There's a totem in Key West that shows arrows to all the different locations from Key West, Havana, and
yes.
Anyway, that's going to be on the cover. And also, I got so excited writing the article. It's pretty short, but I said to Bill the other day, listen, we don't do this often. Let's take the weekend, take our doggy, and let's go down to the Keys, Key West, and just have some fun, because I haven't been there for a while.
Well, it's totally different. You know, when I went there, believe it or not, of course, I was just a child, to open that bureau for the Miami Herald. And to me, though, it became one of the exciting news beats. They would have sent an older man if they knew about the Cuban Revolution. It suddenly, became the hottest news beat. And in those days, you could take a ferry over to Havana, and the ferry, Cuba Libres, or you could take a plane, and you would hardly have time to down a Cuba Libre before you arrived in Havana. And it was such a center of entertainment and, dare I say, decadence and all sorts of naughty things. And so people from Key West, I went over nearly every weekend. In fact, I was going over so often, I rented an apartment there.
Did you really?
Yeah. Are you sitting down?
I am.
The cost was $40 a month.
Oh my goodness!
Of course, this was a long time ago.
Right.
One of those apartments with high ceilings, and then by when I started writing about the refugees coming in, the first ones arrived with mink coats and diamonds.
My
the rich
goodness!
People were getting out,
right?
And then I arrived in Havana on the plane, and two military men met me, and they say, there is a plane leaving for Miami in 30 minutes, and we want you to be on that plane.
That's pretty good.
Well, apparently they didn't like the articles I had been writing in the Miami Herald.
And Darwin, listen, I have to tell you, we are out of town, but maybe out of time, not town. But maybe you could do something on Havana and your memories from it. I think it's very appropriate. In the future, write it, and then maybe our next radio. Anyway, I would love to talk to you more on a lot of things, but I really...
I'm just sorry to get so serious.
No, I'm glad you did. I'm glad you did. I think a lot of people need what you said today to understand, and so stay tuned. We're going to do the best we can, and I really appreciate you so much, and Dan.
Concerned for senior citizens.
Well,
and
we're tough. We're a tough group. We're going to work it out.
Okay.
Goodbye, Darwin.
Pleasure.